Welcome to Step Into the Pivot. We're your hosts. I'm Theresa Conti.
And I'm Ivana. We talk with people just like you. We have honest conversations about current issues that women and men face and how we pivot to address them in our lives.
This podcast is your companion as you step into a workout or take some time for yourself.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Step Into the Pivot with Mel Doman. We're going to have a great episode here. I just know it. I love the creative process. Here with me is, of course, my dear friend, Theresa, who's going to kick us off and share a little bit about Mel. Theresa, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for being here. I am super excited to introduce Mel to all of you who have maybe not heard from her before. So Mel is an organizational psychologist. She was formerly a clinical mental health therapist. She is also an author. In October of 2021, she wrote a wonderful book that was called Yes, You Can Talk About Mental Health at Work. And I really have read that, and it is such an enjoyable book, and heard you talk about it in many instances. So we've known each other for a few years, which I'm super excited about and excited to have you here. So let's just jump right in. If you could kind of tell me what life event, what your major pivot was that has really shaped you the most.
Gosh, it's tough to choose, but I would say probably the biggest one was my decision to transition from clinical psych to organizational psych. Now, I did that back in the day when clinicians didn't really do that. People just kind of stayed in their own lane, and I didn't get any sort of help with that. I made that transition myself about, 11 years ago. And the reason that I did that is, and I'll never forget, I was standing in my office in between clients. I was looking out the window and I was like, I'm not making enough of an impact. This isn't the way. And it feels like I'm treating patients in a broken system and a broken narrative. And this is not the way. And all of my clients are telling me that they don't feel like they can talk about their mental health outside of work. A lot of them feel like their workplaces are torturing them. So I feel like I need to go make an impact at the source. And so I made a very scary, tough decision to leave clinical work and go into organizational psychology. And it was the best decision I could have ever made. For myself as a person, for my career, for how I experience the human condition even further. I went from, I joke, the back end to the front end. And my life has been dramatically different since 2013 for that reason. And even though it was a really difficult pivot at the time, and since then, I've had countless clinicians reach out to me saying, "How'd you do it? How did you do that?" And I was like, come with me so you can skip the blood, sweat, and tears that I had to go through. But yeah, that I would say that was it.
It's cool that you mentioned the word impact because the first time I saw you were up on the stage. You were being interviewed. It was a retirement industry conference.
Hmm.
And I was sitting back. I had no idea, that this session would be happening before, just a few minutes prior when I saw it on the agenda. Um, Full room, completely packed. And you were up there, and one of the first things I was thinking is like, wow, this woman is making an impact. Who is this?
Oh,
I started
thank you.
texting people. I know some of them still have the text. I was like, you need to be here.
Oh my
What is
God.
going on? This person is saying some stuff that we've never heard before. And here's a cool thing also. Fast forward a few years later, now we've heard these things. Some of them are things that we repeat. We don't even remember like where the sentence originated from.
Mhm.
And I'm talking about the title of your book, we are having mental health conversations in the workplace now in a way that, when you were standing up there on the stage and saying like, you can do it, here is why. And, you were boisterous about it.
I was.
I heard boisterous about it. But so what was also catching my attention was the awareness that there must have been a big internal shift that has happened for this person up on the stage. The fact that she's out here so, outspoken and passionate and brave about it means that she's gone through some stuff on the
Oh yeah.
inside.
Oh
So, yeah,
yes.
can you share about that?
Oh yes. It's funny that I in my client deliveries, whether it's virtual, whether it's in person, regardless of the topic or deliverable type, I often joke with people, and I'm so honest because there's a lot of truth and humor, saying that I am an Olympic level athlete warrior and I dare people to beat me. And I often say my love language is anxiety. All these things are true, because people have this interesting assumption that when you study psychology or you've done patient care or whatever it is, it's as if you're above it all. Like you haven't had these struggles. And I go, that is hilarious that I'm somehow absolving myself of my humanity in order to treat the human condition. Just sit with that for a minute. And I am extraordinarily transparent in large client events about things that I've been through and the lessons that have come from pain and suffering and struggle. And I have a theory, and I'm sure this could be a paper of some sort, that there are different archetypes of people who go into psychology for a whole variety of reasons. There's folks who have struggled and have been helped by therapists, or people who are naturally curious, the but why person, the people who want to operate the microscope, the people who are trying to heal themselves from their own stuff. And I could go on and on. And for me, the transitions that I've gone through and the reasons I've gone into psychology is from a very young age. I was always the caring, empathetic, very, 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 very curious child. My poor parents always had to deal with me talking to strangers, walking off, talking to strangers. And I always just had this connection with people and this fascination with the human condition, but that didn't come without struggle. I have a learning disability. I have my entire life. I've struggled with anxiety my entire life. And that hasn't contributed to my reason for going into psychology. I mean, it's something I've dealt with separately, but certainly when you go through these sorts of things, you can't help but learn about yourself. And if you don't, you're really effing bad at your job. And so it's some of the struggles that I've gone through, not only with learning difficulties and emotional struggles. Ooh, imposter syndrome is real, especially when you're owning a business, trying to build, I hate saying these words, build a brand, writing a book. I mean, I wouldn't have gotten through those things if it wasn't for my friends and my husband, who, as I was writing the manuscript, would grab me by the shoulders and physically shake me and saying, "Stop being stupid. You can do this." And I was like, "But I can't." He goes, "But you can." And I still struggle with that now. And it's I mean, you know me, I'm very transparent when I'm like in it and when I'm going through it. And I think that I would be doing a disservice to the people who know me or who follow my work and to myself if it was anything short of being very honest about it. And it's scary, but I think it kind of humanizes me beyond the work and beyond the job title.
Well, I really love that you talk about that because I think a lot of us feel that exact way, but we're not always out there willing to talk about it, willing to share that with everybody else. And it's such an important piece of who we are, makes us think about, what we want to accomplish, what's really important to us. And I love that you want to make an impact as well. I've known you for a few years, and I think you are making an impact on that it's okay to talk about when you're not okay, or when you need help, or
Mhm.
when, something else happens. And I love that you also talk about having your friends around you. I mean, and your husband to help push you that way. And we all need that type of encouragement and,
Mhm.
in our lives, right? Like that's just so important.
Well, I think something else that people don't often think about is that when people see how truly capable you are, and the things that you accomplish, the things that you do. And then you're like, oh, by the way, I have a learning disability. Or by the way, sometimes I just feel effing awful and it's so hard to get the most basic things done. They're like, oh, what? And I go, yes, both can coexist in the same body.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I post on LinkedIn all the time, like when I'm not doing well or something's going on. I will never forget. I posted a photo of Matt and myself when he took me out for a date night because I was like, I was just in it. I had a lot of stuff going on, some like health issues, yada yada yada. And I posted this photo of us smiling together. And I think the first sentence I wrote was, "You would never guess from this photo that I was just not okay." And
I
he
actually
said,
remember
"Why?"
that post. No, I actually remember
You
that
do?
post. Yes, I do,
Yeah.
because I love that you said that, hey, this is me on the outside, but there's something else going on inside here.
Yeah.
Something else that's not okay.
Yeah, just
Right?
because I struggle doesn't mean I'm not capable, doesn't mean I can't do my job, doesn't mean
Yep.
anything. It just means that, like other people, I have my own stuff too. And it's not even about having a diagnosed condition. It's just the full range of things you can feel from life. And it's we feel those ways for a reason. We have that physiological ability, the mental ability to feel those ways for a reason. So please, can we just stop villainizing it and making it seem like it's something awful?
Right. Right. So is that one of your aha moments, or do you have some other aha moments that you would love to share, right? That really affected your pivot in so many ways. And you've talked about quite a few of them, but do you have any other aha moments?
Other aha moments. Yes. It was actually when I first switched into work psych in-house, I had, traditional org psych roles, so people in leadership development, culture, development, employee engagement, in-house roles at certain places. And I love that work. I still do that work, as focusing on emotional intelligence, team communication, constructive conflict, how to share your toys better at work, that sort of thing. And I'll never forget that when I was doing that work and I would say the words mental health during some of the programming and people would like proverbially hiss at me. And why are people acting like this is a dirty word? So fast forward to when my husband and I were living in London and I was on a people and leadership development contract. I said, "Hey, you used to do clinical psych. Could you do a mental health awareness campaign?" I was like, "Oh, yes, I can." And typically for their in-house workshops, it had 10, 11, 12 people. When they put out the flyer for the event, 75 people showed up. And I was floored. I was like, "Oh my God, this is like I've hit on something here." And so then they asked for repeats. And then I started doing some other stuff outside of the organization, and it just felt like it was propelling me forward to this subspecialization and basically straddling that fence from my former clinical life to the current org psych life. And the market was telling me what it needed. The market was saying, "Hey, we know that, we're asking for permission. We need someone to teach us how to do it. How do you do it?" And then that's what helped me pivot into that subspecialization and get the guts to apply and contact a publisher to say, "I don't think anybody's actually teaching folks how to do this, and I want to write a book about it." And they said, "Yes, great." And I was like, "Oh God, now I have to write it. Why did I do this to myself?" But that was the final pivot in that is the market was pulling me, it was telling me what it needed. And I was like, "Well, I don't like how anybody else is doing it, so I'm gonna do it." And the rest was history.
Tell us about how you took care of yourself during these pivots. So,
I don't know if you're gonna like my answer. Well, I'm gonna say sometimes I was great at it and sometimes I sucked at it. Sometimes I was and am really good about making sure to create space for myself to oil the machine. And, I have my mental well-being non-negotiables, which are getting out in nature, playing with my dog Lola, doing salsa dancing when I'm not recovering from ankle surgery, which has been a real gut punch. But I've been cleared recently to go back to try dancing. So I'm very excited and hope it doesn't hurt too much. Um, and sometimes I'm really, really good at that. And sometimes I'm not. And running a business became like a runaway train. And I never will forget the come to Jesus lecture that my husband gave me a few years ago, basically saying, you cannot and will not keep up this pace. You need to start finding folks to help you with your business and change how you're doing things because you will not last if you do this. And I was like, but why? And he really put his foot down with me and said, you have to get help and you have to create more space because I'm telling you, you're not going to last. And it was the shock that I needed. And so I've since hired an assistant, a bookkeeper, someone to help me with content. I had an intern recently. So what I'm doing now is first thing in the morning for at least the first 2 hours that I'm awake and conscious are from me. It's not for the business. It's not for anybody else. Nothing is so important with the exception of fire, flood, emergency, or death that I have to focus on my business. For the first 2 hours, my eyes are open, are for me. And then when it comes to Fridays, Fridays are for me. In rare exceptions, I'll take client calls, do client meetings. Fridays are for me. And if people don't understand that, I'm very comfortable with their discomfort. And these are some of the things I do. I could go on, but I'm conscious of time. These are some of the things I
Yeah,
do.
totally. Just a quick follow-up question to the morning routines and then also
Yeah.
maybe your Fridays, your relationship with technology. Because, right?
Did you see
Mental
my
health
post
and
the other
tech,
day about people
tell
bringing
us,
their phones into the sauna? Did you see? I
everywhere,
was
everywhere these days.
horrified. I was like, number one, you're gonna ruin your phone. It's gonna melt and it's not that water resistant. But oh my God, even in spaces now dedicated for relaxation, people bring in their phones. It's unbelievable.
I was gonna say maybe their phone melting is what they need.
Maybe it's a lesson. And so I very much have instituted the practice like when I wake up, I kiss my husband, I kiss the dog, it takes me like at least an hour to come into existence. So I'm not even looking at my phone until I've gotten my robe on, I've had my morning coffee, I've taken the dog out, I've taken care of her breakfast, I've kind of stretched a little bit. I want nothing to do with my devices until my basic needs have been met at all. And so I've really learned to try to disrupt the dopamine hit cycle because that's what that is. I mean, smartphones are terrible for us. And yes, it's a necessity for my business. My laptop is a necessity for my business, but I have to detach at least when I start my day in the morning because it just floods you and you don't even realize it. So it's a hard practice to maintain, but I do not let my phone govern my mornings anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such an important micro pivot. I've been implementing it myself. I have a little pouch that I put it in, and if I
Oh, you're better
don't,
than me.
well, it gives me a visual cue, so implementing some of these little reminders, it can
Hmm.
be so helpful because the addiction to it is
Oh,
real,
it
and
is an
that's also,
addiction.
physiological. So we've
Hmm.
talked, about micro pivots. That's a micro pivot. You deciding, you know what, I'm gonna shift and change here how I
Yeah,
operate, for the higher good of my day, of my well-being, which ultimately
yeah.
benefits everyone. And we've talked about the big pivots. Some of
Hmm.
them were, that moment when you're just standing in the window and you're looking out and you're recognizing something's afoot, a change is afoot here.
Hmm.
And I would love for you to help us as we conclude, connect the dots here and tell us how these pivots particularly the major ones, have actually been for you a step forward?
Honestly, and I don't want to sound too like after school special here, but I have the life I always yearned for because of those pivots. And those pivots were painful and they were scary, and I had a lot of failure surrounding them and confusion and uncertainty, and no one helped me. And I often would doubt myself and would worry, am I doing the right thing? Am I going the right way? And as soon as I just kind of stopped thinking about that and just went full force, and I thought to myself, I have nothing to lose other than my ego in this. That's it. And it has propelled me forward in a way I never dreamed of ever in my career or even as a person. I feel, and granted, I have plenty of issues like anybody else of all shapes and sizes, but I'm I'm happy. I'm content. I have a job that I love. I live in a place that I love. I have a husband who is my ride or die, even though I just want to choke him sometimes because, hashtag marriage. I have friends who show up for me. I have, I'm financially comfortable. I have decent health. And I feel like by doing a pivot into what felt like an infinite abyss, I was able to just fly and not fall. Um, yeah.
Awesome. Such great reminders, such great things to remember. I am happy that Ethan and I have you as our friend. So
Oh, ditto, mutual.
we really appreciate Mel Doman being here with us today. Really great messages. She's amazing. If you don't follow her on LinkedIn, you absolutely should.
Oh,
So as we sign off, I want to remind everybody, if you have a pivot, step into it.
And if you'd like to share your pivot with us, let us know. Contact us. We are always interested and open to hearing a great story. As you can tell, we can all learn from one another, and it gets easier the more we share. Thank you, Mel. Thank you, Theresa.
thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Step Into the Pivot. We hope you found inspiration and valuable insights from our conversation. Remember, life is a series of pivots, and it's in those moments of change that we truly grow.
If you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay connected, make sure to check out our websites. You'll find additional resources, behind-the-scenes content, and more details about our incredible guests. We love hearing from listeners, so reach out with your thoughts, questions, or your own pivot stories.
To keep the conversation going, be sure to follow us on social media. We're on LinkedIn and Instagram, where we share updates, quotes, and engage with our amazing community.
If you haven't already, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback makes a difference, and it helps us bring you meaningful conversations. We're signing off, reminding you that every pivot is a step forward. Take care, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Step Into the Pivot.